My name is Eleanor, and on my 34th birthday, everything changed. I had spent months saving for the perfect dress, a whisper of pale celadon silk that felt like water against my skin. The plan was a quiet celebration at the Gilded Perch, a restaurant perched atop the tallest building in Port Blossom, with views that stretched across the silver expanse of Serenity Bay. I wanted the evening to be a landmark, a quiet testament to a life I had built with my own two hands. When my niece, Chloe, deliberately appended her pomegranate spritzer, the crimson liquid arcing across the white linen like a wound, time seemed to slow. It soaked into my dress, blooming into a dark, irreparable stain against the delicate green. There, she smirked, her 17-year-old face a mask of practiced indifference. Now the outside matches the inside. Not so perfect after all. My mother, seated beside her, reached out and patted Chloe's hand, a gesture of quiet approval that cut deeper than the insult itself. I managed to smile, a fragile thing that felt like glass, but inside, a foundation I had spent a lifetime reinforcing finally crumbled to dust. I have always been the anchor in my family's turbulent sea. While my older sister, Clara, drifted through life in our sleepy hometown, a constellation of part-time jobs and short-term rentals, I had moved to Port Blossom with a scholarship and a fierce, quiet determination. I studied architecture, fueled by coffee and a deep-seated need to build things that would last. Through sheer will and countless nights spent bent over blueprints, I climbed from a junior draftsman to a senior partner at Architecture Designs, one of the most respected firms on the coast. My apartment, a clean, minimalist space with a wall of glass overlooking the bay, was a monument to those sacrifices. So was my small collection of art, the well-made furniture, and the sensible hybrid car I'd bought after my last promotion. Clara, 3 years my senior, had charted a different course. She became pregnant with Chloe at 19, trading her community college textbooks for diapers and formula. Her life became a series of near misses and financial crises, punctuated by a rotating cast of boyfriends who never quite measured up. I never judged her path, but I inevitably became the family's emergency fund. Ellie, the landlord's making noise again. Just a little something to tide me over became a familiar refrain. My transmission went out. Chloe has her dance regionals this weekend, and I can't miss it. The credit card I had added her to my account for intended strictly for true emergencies slowly became her source for non-essential comforts, boutique clothing, salon appointments, and dinners at restaurants she couldn't otherwise afford. Each month, I paid the balance, telling myself the story we all do: family helps family. When Chloe turned 16 and needed a car, I bought her one. Not the flashy convertible she'd hinted at, but a safe, reliable hatchback. For insurance purposes, I kept the title and registration in my name. You can use it until you graduate, I'd explained, watching her face fall at the distinction between using and owning. My mother, Helen, was the silent architect of this dynamic. It started in childhood. My meticulously practiced piano pieces earned a distracted, "That's nice, dear," while Clara's clumsy, mistake-ridden attempts were met with rapturous applause for her brave spirit. When I won the scholarship that paid for my entire university education, my mother remarked that I'd always been lucky. When I landed my first job at the firm, she worried that I was neglecting my personal life. My promotions were met with, "I hope you're not working yourself to death, sweetheart." My financial stability was brushed aside with, "Money isn't everything, Eleanor." Meanwhile, Clara was always doing her best and praised for having such a big heart, even as her choices led to one self-inflicted disaster after another. Last month, I was made a full senior partner. It was the culmination of a decade of work, a significant achievement with a salary to match. When I called home to share the news, my mother said, "That's wonderful, honey. Did I tell you Clara's thinking about taking an online course in bookkeeping? She's so resourceful." Later that evening, Clara called. "Must be nice," she'd said, her voice tight with a familiar envy. "Some of us have real lives to deal with, not just fancy corner offices." I could hear Chloe in the background, making a soft, derisive snorting sound. Despite it all, I loved them. They were the only family I had, the bedrock of my past. I held on to the belief that one day, they would see men at my success, not my bank account, but meant that they would be proud. It was a fragile hope, but it sustained me through the years of quiet dismissals, backhanded compliments, and the slow, steady drain on my resources. As my 34th birthday approached, I decided this year would be different. I would orchestrate a moment of connection. I would bring them into my world, host them at the finest restaurant in the city, wear something beautiful that I had earned. I thought that if they could just see the life I had built, touch its tangible reality, they would finally understand my journey. Looking back, I see the quiet desperation in that plan, the lingering ghost of a girl still seeking the approval she was never freely given. I didn't understand then that some people are committed to misunderstanding you, especially when your light illuminates the shadows in their own lives. Planning my birthday celebration became a project, and like any architectural design, I approached it with meticulous care. The Gilded Perch required reservations 3 months in advance, and I set an alarm to call the second their phone lines opened. When I secured a private corner table for 7 on my birthday, overlooking the glittering tapestry of the city and the bay, it felt like a small victory, a sign that this time, things might align. The dress was the next piece of the puzzle. I wanted something that felt like understated, elegant, and strong in its simplicity. After weeks of searching, I found it in a small, independent boutique downtown. It was a sheath of pale celadon silk from a designer I admired, with a clean, architectural neckline and a drape that felt both timeless and modern. At $2,500, it was an extravagance, but as I stood before the mirror, the cool fabric settling against my skin, it felt less like a purchase and more like an investment in myself. A special occasion, the boutique owner asked, her eyes crinkling at the corners as she wrapped it in layers of tissue paper. My birthday, I replied. I'm having dinner at the Gilded Perch. How lovely. Your husband must be very proud. I shook my head, a small smile playing on my lips. No husband. Just me, celebrating me. She returned the smile, her own widening. Even better. The invitations went out a month in advance. My friends Marcus, a fellow architect from a rival firm, Anika, my sharp-witted friend from university who is now a law professor, and Liam and his husband, David, who lived in my building all replied with immediate and joyful acceptances. Inviting my family was a more delicate operation. I called my mother first. A Thursday night, she said, the weariness in her voice a familiar weight. That's a long drive into the city on a weeknight, Eleanor. I know, Mom. I can arrange a car service to pick you all up and take you home, so you don't have to worry about driving. We'll see. I'll have to talk to Clara. Chloe has dance, you know. I swallowed the familiar pang of disappointment. It's at the Gilded Perch. I'd really, really love for you all to be there. We'll try, dear, she said, a promise as thin as tracing paper. Clara's response was predictable. The Gilded Perch? Isn't that place ridiculously expensive? It's my treat, I assured her. For everyone. Well, Chloe will need something new to wear. She can't show up at a place like that in her usual clothes. I closed my eyes, counting the seconds in my head like beads on a rosary. Of course. I can send you some money for a new outfit for her. That would be the right thing to do, Clara said, her tone suggesting I was the one imposing. And we might be a little late. Chloe's class doesn't end until 6. On the morning of my birthday, I woke with the sunrise, the sky over the bay painted in soft strokes of rose and gold. I had booked a day for myself, a long run along the waterfront, a quiet hour at a local art gallery, a massage. As I sipped my coffee, watching the ferries glide across the water, I let myself feel a sliver of hope. Tonight would be different. Tonight, surrounded by the quiet elegance of the life I had built, they would see me. They would understand the labor behind the luck they always spoke of. They would be proud. By 6 o'clock, I was ready. The celadon dress fit as if it were spun just for me. My hair was styled in simple, classic lines, and my makeup was minimal. I looked in the mirror and saw the woman I had worked so hard to become, calm, confident, and, for tonight at least, worthy of a celebration. The maitre d' at the Gilded Perch greeted me by name. Happy birthday, MS. Vance. Your table is ready, and we have the champagne chilling, just as you requested. My friends arrived right on time, their arms full of beautifully wrapped gifts, their smiles genuine. Anika hugged me tightly. Ellie, you look breathtaking. Like a sea goddess. By 7:15, we were seated, laughing and talking, but the 3 chairs for my family remained empty. I kept glancing at my phone, tucked away in my small clutch. Should we wait? Marcus asked gently as the waiter approached. I shook my head, forcing a brightness I didn't feel. No, let's begin. They'll be here soon. At 7:45, just as the second course was being served, they finally arrived. My mother entered first, wearing her standard floral dress for semi-formal occasions. Clara followed, her expression pinched and annoyed. Chloe trailed behind them, thumbs flying across her phone screen, dressed in a tight, black mini dress that was more suited for a nightclub than a fine dining restaurant. Sorry we're late, my mother said, offering no real apology. The traffic was a nightmare. The staff seamlessly arranged their settings and brought them their first course. The conversation, which had been so lively, became stilted. My friends, bless them, tried their best to draw my family in. So, Chloe, Liam said kindly, Eleanor tells us you're an incredible dancer. Chloe shrugged, not looking up from her phone. It's whatever. She's extremely talented, my mother jumped in, her voice swelling with pride. Her instructor says she has the potential to go professional. She just needs better opportunities, Clara added, a pointed look in my direction. The studios in our town are so limited. I recognized the familiar opening, the unspoken request. If she's serious about it, I could help research some summer intensives here in Port Blossom. There are some world-class programs. We can't all afford to live in glass towers by the bay, Eleanor, Clara snapped. Some of us have to make do. The table fell silent. Anika caught my eye, a flicker of concern in her gaze. I gave a subtle shake of my head. Not now. Not tonight. As the evening wore on, the chasm between my 2 worlds became painfully clear. My friends shared stories that made me laugh, that highlighted moments of kindness or determination they saw in me. My family sat in a pocket of simmering resentment, their contributions limited to monosyllabic answers and the occasional cutting remark. When it came time for toasts, Anika raised her glass first. To Eleanor, who has taught me what integrity looks like, both in her work and in her friendships. I am so incredibly proud to know you. Others followed with similar warmth. When it was my family's turn, my mother said simply, Happy birthday, sweetheart. 34. My, how time flies. Clara lifted her glass with visible reluctance. To my little sister. Always building castles in the sky while the rest of us keep our feet on the ground. Chloe didn't toast at all. The gift opening was equally agonizing. My friends had pooled their resources to give me a signed, first edition book by my favorite architect. Liam and David gave me a gift certificate for a weekend retreat at a quiet spa on the coast. Each gift was personal, thoughtful, and deeply cherished. When I opened the small bag from Clara, I worked to keep my expression neutral. Inside was a generic, vanilla-scented candle from a discount store, the clearance sticker still visible on the bottom. The card, clearly a last-minute purchase, just said, Happy B-Day, sis, with their names scrawled inside. Thank you, I said, my voice softer than I intended. It's lovely. Well, we can't all afford fancy first editions, Clara said, her defensiveness a sharp edge in the air. Some of us have real bills to pay. The dessert arrived, a delicate sphere of white chocolate that the waiter cracked open with a small silver hammer to reveal a passion-fruit mousse inside. Happy birthday, MS. Vance was scripted in gold leaf on the plate. As the waiter described the creation, I noticed Chloe's expression curdle. She had been sullen all night, but now a new, calculating glint appeared in her eyes. The dessert was a piece of art, a final flourish to an evening I had so carefully curated. For a brief, shining moment, I felt a swell of pride. This was my life. The one I had designed and built, joist by joist, from the ground up. I allowed myself to simply enjoy it, without apology. That was when I saw her whisper to Clara, who then smirked and whispered something back. My mother leaned in, completing their tight, secretive circle. All three glanced at me, their expressions making my stomach clench. "Is everything all right?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Just fine," my mother replied smoothly. "Chloe was just remarking on how elaborate everything is." I turned to my niece, determined to smooth the ruffled feathers. "I'm so glad you could make it, Chloe. I know Thursday nights are tough with your schedule." Chloe looked directly at me then, her eyes hard. "Yeah, whatever. Must be nice to throw away money like this when people are starving." "Chloe," Clara said, her tone holding no real reprimand. "Be nice. It's your aunt's birthday." My friends shifted uncomfortably. Marcus cleared his throat. "So, Eleanor mentioned you might be looking at colleges soon, Chloe. Any ideas what you might want to study?" She rolled her eyes. "Not everyone just gets to go to college. Some of us have to work." "Actually," I interjected, choosing my words with care, "I've been putting some money aside for your education. I started an account for you when you were born." The table went still. This was news to everyone, including Clara, who stared at me bewildered. "What do you mean, you've been putting money aside?" "A college fund," I explained. "It's not a huge amount, but it should be enough to cover a state university, especially with some scholarships." Instead of gratitude, I saw three faces harden in unison. My mother's lips thinned. Clara's eyes narrowed. And Chloe, looking angrier than ever, gripped her water glass. "So you've just been sitting on a pile of money this whole time?" Clara's voice was laced with a dangerous venom I knew from childhood. "While I was working double shifts. While Mom had to dip into her retirement to help me make rent." "That's not what I said," I began, feeling the beautiful evening slipping through my fingers like sand. "It was specifically for Chloe's education. It's in a trust." "Always the savior," Clara sneered. "Always making the rest of us look bad." My friends were now mortified witnesses to my family's implosion. Anika placed a comforting hand on my arm, but what could she say? "Let's just enjoy the dessert," I pleaded, a last, desperate attempt to salvage the night. "We can talk about the college fund another time." "No, let's talk about it now," Chloe said, her voice rising. "I don't want your charity. I don't need anything from you." "Chloe, honey," my mother began, "your aunt is just trying to help. She's trying to control everything, like she always does." Chloe shot back. "Walking around like she's better than us just because she has money. Acting like we should all be grateful for the scraps she throws us." The ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to fade away, my world narrowing to the sharp, ugly edges of this moment. The perfect evening, months in the making, was shattering. "That's not true," I said quietly. "I love you. I just want to help you have a good future." Chloe stood up abruptly, grabbing her half-full glass of pomegranate spritzer. "You want to know what I think of your help?" she seethed. "You want to know what I think of your fancy dress, and your fancy restaurant, and your fancy life?" Before anyone could move, she flung the contents of the glass at me. The cold, sticky liquid hit my chest, a shocking splash that made me gasp. It spread instantly, the deep red soaking into the pale celadone silk, staining it beyond repair. In the stunned silence that followed, Chloe delivered her final, venomous blow. "There. Now the outside matches the inside. Not so perfect after all." My friends gasped. Liam started to rise from his chair, but I held up a hand to stop him. The restaurant was definitely quiet now, every eye in our section fixed on our table. I expected my mother to erupt, to scold Chloe, to apologize. Instead, she patted Chloe's hand. "I think we should go," she said, her voice calm as she stood. "Eleanor, this was all a bit much. You know how sensitive teenagers can be when they feel overwhelmed." Clara was already grabbing her purse. "We told you this place was too fancy. You should have just done something simple if you wanted us to come." I sat there, frozen, the red liquid dripping from my ruined dress onto the pristine tablecloth. I could feel the stares of strangers, a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. "It's fine," I heard myself say, my voice impossibly steady. "Thank you for coming." As they walked away, Leaving me humiliated in my stained dress, I held my composure. I dabbed at the silk with a napkin, a futile gesture. I even managed to smile for my friends. "Well," I said, my voice shaking only slightly, "I guess that's the end of the party." Anika immediately moved to the empty chair beside me, wrapping a strong arm around my shoulders. "Ellie, I am so sorry. That was monstrous." Marcus was already flagging down the waiter, quietly settling the bill. As we made our way out of the restaurant, past the sympathetic glances, Liam and David flanked me like a protective honor guard. It wasn't until I was back in the sanctuary of my own apartment, surrounded only by the people who truly saw and valued me, that I finally allowed the tears to fall. The dress was ruined. The night was a disaster. But far more devastating was the complete and utter destruction of the fantasy I had clung to for so long that my love and generosity could ever be enough to earn theirs in return. As my friends spoke in low, furious tones, offering comfort and outrage, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something colder, clearer. A final thread of hope had snapped, and in its place, a quiet, unyielding resolve began to form. Something had to change. And it would start tonight. After my friends left, I stood alone in my living room, the city lights twinkling below, indifferent. I was still wearing the stained dress. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app, scrolling through years of transactions steady, one-way river of funds flowing from my life into theirs. The credit card statements told a story of casual luxuries I had unknowingly financed. Then I opened my social media. Chloe had already posted a blurry photo of me, looking shocked, the red stain prominent on my dress. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to remind the queen she's not better than anyone else. Family drama, not sop effect." The post had nearly 100 likes, including a heart emoji from my sister, Clara. In that moment, the years of quiet hurt, of trying to be good enough, of wanting to be loved, all fell away. They were replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I was not a daughter or a sister or an aunt in those moments. I was a resource they resented but continued to exploit. I picked up my phone again. My first call was to my credit card company. My second was to a 24-hour towing service. Alone in my apartment, I finally peeled off the ruined silk dress. $2,500 of craftsmanship and hope, destroyed in an instant of casual cruelty. I hung it on the back of my bathroom door, a pale green and crimson reminder of the night my life finally began to pivot. The water in the shower was scalding hot, but it couldn't wash away the feeling of a lifetime of illusions being scrubbed raw. This wasn't an ending. It was a demolition. And from the rubble, I would finally build something just for myself. The morning after my birthday dawned crisp and clear. I woke not with a hangover, but with a strange, unnerving sense of purpose. The emotional storm of the previous night had passed, leaving behind a landscape of stark, undeniable truths. I made coffee, sat at my desk overlooking the bay, and began to methodically dismantle the system of support that had become a cage. My first call, at precisely 8 a.m., was to the credit card company. "Good morning, my name is Eleanor Vance," I said, my voice even. "I need to remove an authorized user, Clara Vance, from my account, effective immediately." "Certainly, MS." "Vance," the agent replied. "May I ask the reason?" "Misuse of the card for non-agreed-upon expenses," I stated simply. "I understand. We will deactivate her card now. I also recommend we issue you a new card with a new number to prevent any further issues." "Please do," I said. The call took less than 5 minutes. A decade of financial leakage, plugged with a single, decisive action. My second call was to my friend, Thomas, a lawyer specializing in property law. "Ellie," he said, his voice warm with concern. "Anika told me what happened last night. Are you all right?" "I'm getting there, Thomas. I need some quick legal advice about a vehicle." I explained the situation with the Carmi name on the title and registration, my bank account paying for the insurance and maintenance, and Chloe's exclusive use of it. "You're on solid ground," he assured me. "It's your property." A verbal agreement for its use can be revoked at any time, especially given her recent behavior. You have every right to reclaim it. My third call was to Port Blossom Towing. I explained that I needed my vehicle recovered from my sister's address in my hometown, a 40-minute drive away. I emailed them copies of the title and my driver's license. Please be discreet, I requested. The current user may believe the car is hers. Not a problem, ma'am, the dispatcher said. Our drivers are professionals. We can have it back in your building's garage by noon. My final preparatory act was emotional, not logistical. I sat with my journal and wrote down everything I wanted to say to them. I listed the financial figures, the instances of dismissal, the final, public humiliation. I wasn't building a case for a jury. I was building a foundation for myself, one made of facts instead of feelings. The first call came at 9:15 a.m. It was Clara, her voice shrill with indignation. Ellie, my card was just declined at the grocery store. In front of everyone. You need to call the bank. There's no mistake, Clara, I said calmly. I've removed you from my account. A stunned silence. You what? The credit card was for emergencies. Last night made it clear that our definition of that word is very different. That financial arrangement is now over. Because of a stupid dress? Are you serious? How am I supposed to buy groceries? How am I supposed to pay for Chloe's dance costumes next month? The familiar tide of guilt tried to pull at me, but for the first time, I felt the anchor of my own resolve hold fast. The same way other people do, Clara. With the money you earn from your job. You selfish, cold-hearted, she began, her voice cracking with rage. I'm available to talk in person. I cut her off, my tone unwavering. Come to my apartment at 3 o'clock this afternoon. All of you. I hung up before she could respond. The next call, less than an hour later, was from Chloe, her voice a mix of panic and fury. My car is gone. Someone stole my car right out of the driveway. It wasn't stolen, Chloe, I said. And it's not your car. It's my car, which I allowed you to use. I've had it brought back to me. The explosion was immediate. You can't do that. That's my car. How am I supposed to get to school? To dance practice? Those are logistical problems you, your mother, and your grandmother will now have to solve together. Your actions have consequences. Last night was a very significant action. Her voice shifted, the anger dissolving into the manipulative tears I knew so well. Please, Aunt Ellie, I'm sorry. I'll delete the post. I need that car. Please don't do this to me. I'm sorry too, Chloe, I said, and I meant it. I was sorry it had come to this. 3 o'clock. At my apartment. My mother called last, her voice dripping with sorrowful disappointment. Eleanor, I don't understand this cruelty. To take your niece's car, to cut off your sister after one little incident. Mom, it wasn't one little incident. It was the culmination of a lifetime of incidents. It was the moment I finally realized that my love and support were being treated as an entitlement, not a gift. Family doesn't keep score, dear. No, I agreed. But they also shouldn't be expected to endlessly absorb disrespect. This isn't about punishment. It's about establishing a healthy relationship, and that can't happen under the old terms. 3 o'clock. By the time the tow truck delivered my hatchback to my building's secure garage, I felt a profound sense of peace. At 2:55 p.m., my intercom buzzed. MS. Vance, Helen, Clara, and Chloe Vance to see you. Send them up, I said, taking a deep, fortifying breath. They entered my apartment not as family, but as a delegation with grievances. Clara's face was stormy, Chloe's was sullen and tear-stained, and my mother wore the expression of a deeply wounded matriarch. Sit down, I said, gesturing to the dining table where I had laid out a single file folder. I'm not sitting down until you tell me what the hell you think you're doing, Clara spat. I think I'm finally taking responsibility for my own well-being, I replied evenly. Please sit. Reluctantly, they took their seats. I remained standing, a conscious choice to shift the familiar power dynamic. I want to show you something, I began, opening the folder. I didn't raise my voice. I simply presented the facts. This is a summary of the direct financial support I've provided to you, Clara, over the past 5 years, not including gifts or the credit card. The total is just over $47,000. Clara flinched as if struck. These are the credit card statements from the past 2 years. The total is over $31,000. On things like salon visits, concert tickets, and weekend trips. You have more than enough, my mother murmured. It's right to share. I have worked for what I have, Mom. And sharing is a choice. It becomes problematic when it's an expectation. This, I continued, placing the car's purchase agreement on the table, is the car. $32,000 plus $4,000 a year in insurance and maintenance. I let the numbers hang in the air. The total over 5 years is more than $106,000. Money I gave because I love you. I then turned my tablet around to face them, the screen showing Chloe's social media post. I scrolled through the comments, many from her friends, cheering her on. I read one aloud. LOL, did your rich auntie cry? And your reply, Chloe, totally. It was epic. Chloe sank lower in her chair, a flush creeping up her neck. This, I said, my voice quiet but firm, is how my love and my $106,000 of support were repaid. With public humiliation, mockery, and a complete lack of gratitude or respect. She's just a child, Eleanor, my mother pleaded. She made a foolish mistake. She is 17, I countered. She is old enough to know cruelty. And you, Mom, and you, Clara, are old enough to know better than to condone it. You patted her hand. You liked her post. For the first time, they had no easy defense. The facts were laid bare, stripped of emotional manipulation. So what is this? Clara asked, her voice smaller now. You're just cutting us off? I am ending a dynamic that is unhealthy for all of us. The financial support is over. The credit card is canceled. The car is mine. But how will I get to dance practice? Chloe whispered, the reality of her new life dawning. That is for your mother to figure out, I said, not unkindly. It's called parenting. We'll lose our apartment, Clara said, her eyes wide with panic. Then you will have to find one you can afford on your own income. Or you could get a second job. You are capable, Clara. More capable than you've allowed yourself to be. My mother finally looked at me, a flicker of genuine confusion in her eyes. I don't understand you. You've always been the one to help. And I have been taken for granted, I said softly. My successes were minimized, my generosity was expected, and my feelings were dismissed. Last night, I wasn't just a sister or a daughter. I was a symbol of a life you resent, and I was punished for it. That will not happen again. I walked to the window, my back to them for a moment. I love you all. That has not changed. But my relationship with myself has. I will no longer fund a life for you that breeds resentment toward me. I will no longer set myself on fire to keep you warm. I turned back. The college fund for you, Chloe, remains untouched. It is in a trust for your education as it was always intended. But everything else stops now. It is time for you to build your own lives. Silence descended on the room, thick and heavy. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for their approval or fearing their anger. I was simply stating my truth. Clara, surprisingly, was the first to break. She just nodded slowly, the fight draining out of her. Chloe was crying silently. It was my mother who spoke, her voice raspy. What happens now? Now, I said, walking to the door and opening it, you go home. And you figure it out. You learn to live on what you have. You learn to treat the people who love you with respect. And maybe, in time, we can build a new relationship. One based on mutual respect, not my checkbook. They filed out, their shock palpable. As my mother passed me, she paused. I never meant to hurt you, Eleanor. I know, Mom, I said, the words heavy with years of unspoken truth. But you did. And now, we all have to live with the consequences. I closed the door and leaned against it, the quiet of my apartment wrapping around me like a blanket. It was a terrifying, liberating silence. The structure of my family as I knew it had been demolished. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing on solid ground that I had laid myself. 6 months passed. Spring bloomed across Port Blossom, then deepened into the lush green of summer. My life, unburdened by the constant weight of my family's needs, began to expand in quiet, wonderful ways. The first month was a difficult silence. Then, a single text message from Chloe arrived. Got a job at the bookstore. Saving for a car. Not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know. It was a small seed, but I watered it. I'm proud of you, Chloe. That takes hard work. Clara took longer. My mother relayed her struggles in hushed, worried tones during our brief, weekly phone calls. Clara lost her apartment, but found a smaller, more affordable one. She took on a second job waitressing on weekends. Then, 3 months after our confrontation, she sent me an email. I hate you for what you did, it began, and my heart sank. But it continued, and I'm also grateful. I'm tired all the time, but it's a different kind of tired. It feels mine. Thank you for making me grow up. My relationship with my mother evolved slowly, cautiously. Our conversations shifted from her litany of Clara's problems to tentative questions about my life, my work, my friends. One day she said, "You sound different, Eleanor." Happier. I am, Mom, I replied. I think I took your strength for granted, she said, her voice thick with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Because you never seemed to need me, I forgot to see you. It wasn't an apology, but it was the start of an understanding. As autumn began to paint the leaves in hues of amber and rust, we started having family dinners once a month at my mother's house. They were simple, sometimes awkward affairs, where we were all learning new roles. Chloe, who had indeed bought a used car with her own money, was more mature, her teenage snark replaced by a wry, self-deprecating humor. Clara, enrolled in an online bookkeeping course, talked about her future with a focus I had never seen in her. On my 35th birthday, I didn't want a grand celebration. I asked for a quiet dinner at my mother's house. Just us and my closest friends. No fancy restaurants, no expensive dresses. As we sat around the familiar oak table, my mother raised her glass. A toast, she said, her eyes meeting mine. To my daughter, Eleanor, who loved us enough to demand we be better, and who had the courage to build her own beautiful life. We are so proud of you. Tears welled in my eyes as everyone clinked their glasses. Later, Chloe pulled me aside and handed me a small, lumpy envelope. It's not much, she said, her cheeks pink. From my paychecks. It's a down payment on the dress. Inside were $200 in crumpled bills. I looked at her, at the determined, hopeful young woman she was becoming, and I saw a future I never thought possible for us. Thank you, Chloe, I said, accepting the envelope not as repayment, but as a treaty. But you don't owe me anything. I know, she said. That's why I want to. The relationship with my family is still a work in progress. It is a structure we are renovating, carefully and with respect for its history, but with a new, stronger foundation. There are days when old dynamics threaten to reappear, like ghosts in the hallways. But now we have the tools to manage them. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their own choices. And, sometimes, the greatest act of love is the one you show yourself, the radical decision to believe you are worthy of respect, and the courage to build a life and a family where that respect is the cornerstone of everything.